study of the relationship between linguistic behavior and psychological processes. In this webinar, we will explore the increasing importance of behavioral competency matching, different techniques available for behavioral analysis of the candidate, what is psycholinguistics and how is it better than traditional psychometric assessments. Let me now introduce you to the speakers for the webinar. I am delighted to welcome Rajiv Menon, industry expert in behavioral insights. Rajiv started his career as a sales professional and moved on to be a thought leader in assessments. He has been responsible for the creation of several behavioral or personality assessments. He also has a patent pending process in exam malpractice prevention. He envisages that the human capital measurement is set to undergo significant changes both in design and delivery and continues to draw best practices for assessments. He consults with several organizations in the human capital measurement space in defining and implementing accurate tools and practices for talent measurement. We also have with us Sanjay Tomhose, CEO, Talview. Sanjay founded Talview in 2012 and has been driving the vision and strategy since inception. He is also responsible for new initiatives and product strategy at Talview. He is passionate about building technologies that help make hiring easy. He is currently working on a cutting-edge technology that can impact the world. Previously, he has worked with MNCs like National Instruments and L&T. He was a part of core teams building world-class cloud-based tech applications. He is an engineer from Kochi University and an MBA from IIT Bombay. Our partner for today's webinar is Talview. Talview is the second largest player globally in video mobile recruitment technology space and is the pioneer in hiring technology augmented with talent engagement and state-of-the-art analytics. Talview is currently in phase 2, aiming to deliver a cutting-edge revolutionary engine that helps organizations hire better candidates based upon competencies, cultural fit, and behavior. Talview has consistently delivered its clients with a significant reduction in time to hire, candidate satisfaction, and has enhanced hiring managers and recruiters' productivity. Like always, we have saved time for you to ask your questions at the end of the webinar. For those attending the live webinar can submit their questions anytime during the presentation through the Q&A section. We will try to respond to as many questions as time allows. So without any further ado, I would request Rajiv and Sanjay to kindly take over from here. Over to you.
Thanks, Shweta, and good afternoon to all of you. It's a pleasure to be talking to such a large number of you on the webinar, and we will today be discussing something very interesting, the entire science behind psycholinguistics and how it can impact the way you measure competencies in your candidates as well as for employees going forward. We are today witnessing a huge paradigm shift in recruitment. From the times, and the shift is happening extremely fast. If you really look at what was happening maybe about even 10 years ago, and let's just take the small area of sourcing. Sourcing would primarily be through maybe paper resumes which are sent to you, and then people would then sift through that and then identify who the best people were who could be called in for the next stage of the recruitment process. From then we moved a significant way, and today people are talking about video resumes. Today people are talking about social profiling, developing profiles from your social media interactions and so on and so forth. So there's a big shift that's happening. And HR, while in the past it used to be one of the slower adapters of technology, in the last 4 to 5 years we're seeing a massive adoption of various kinds of technological solutions available, which are impacting the way multitude of recruitment as well as talent management problems are being solved. So what's the paradigm shift that we're talking about? I think the buzzword today is VUCA. VUCA, which is volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. This is the business environment that most of today's businesses are present in, which also means that change is inevitable, change is fast, and change can be extremely sudden, which in turn leads to something called as organizational Darwinism, which is essentially an extension of the same philosophy from the from the development of human beings propounded by Charles Darwin many years ago. Organizations are morphing, they're evolving, they're changing in the way they used to interact with people. They're changing the way employees are interacting with each other from the times that mobile phones were not allowed inside office premises to today, social media being a constant companion for most employees. We've indeed come a far way, and this change is becoming faster and faster. Now, the biggest driver for change, while we've coined the phrase VUCA now, it's been pretty much the same thing over the last 3 to 4 years. And the change is also happening because there's a significant effect on both the organizational as well as the employee performance. Employees typically in a VUCA kind of a situation, and this is what we've seen in the last few years, are less effective. Questions are being asked today about whether the right employees are in the right job, whether the job that was expected to be completed in a particular period of time is completed within that particular period of time, quality of jobs, and so on and so forth. Employees today also less on risk taking, so they are looking at some stable situations or stable environments to work in. Unfortunately, VUCA has made it virtually impossible to have stability as a standard part, and stability can only come in for an employee relatively if many behavioral attributes are strong in the employee, and which is one of the reasons why innate behavioral attributes today to face the situation of VUCA is very critical for success. And let me just elaborate this probably a little more. In the past, I think people were constantly being hired for skills and in many cases knowledge as well. Knowledge and skills in today's world are fairly easy, or rather it's just a time-bound definition in terms of acquiring them if the basic behavioral traits are available. And I will talk a little bit more about the behavioral traits that are critical for success in today's environment. But clearly the focus seems to have shifted from looking at skills and knowledge as a method of segregating people and identifying the right fit to getting into behavior even at the entry level. I think in the past, industry has been using behavioral assessments and behavioral techniques for people in the senior manager and above kind of a category, but it's increasingly seen that that's not enough, and we'll in the next slide I'll talk to you and tell you why that is so. But clearly there is a need to change the parameters for hiring across the organization. That's the essence of today's change in the recruitment process. So if you look at the pictorial in the slide in front of you, you will see that we've kind of divided the entire hierarchy of the organization into 4. And this is typically how many organizations, if not all, actually deploy the resources. You'll have a large chunk of people at the fresher or the entry level. And when I'm talking entry level, you're talking of people with maybe about 0 to 3 years of experience. Then you have the mid-management level, typically made up of first-time managers and some senior management folk there. Third is the real senior management, who are typically handling multiple teams and so on and so forth. And then, of course, there's a leadership team. Now, the impact of VUCA is highest on the lower segment of the pyramid, and that is because any change, any drastic change that occurs today, whether it's technology, for example, you might have a bunch of people who are specialists on core Java. Now, the key requirement and the technology that you would be building your products on might have changed over the last couple of years, and you will now need a bunch of people who are well versed in some other technology. And the first set of people who are going to undergo that change would be the people at the bottom of the pyramid, typically. And obviously, they are the ones who will be weathering the storm in that sense, if one may use a slightly stronger word. The second impact of VUCA, and I think this is something that's important, we are seeing a spate of mergers and acquisitions. We are seeing a spate of sell-offs. We're seeing a spate of job offers not being honored, and so on and so forth, in line with changing business scenarios. And again, you will see that the people that are affected the most, either in terms of layoffs or not having jobs confirmed, is actually the people in the lower level, not so much in the senior management and the leadership level. And therefore, the class of employees that are most impacted by VUCA is this particular part. But if you really look at what you are typically looking to measure in people that you're hiring at that kind of level, you would currently see most people focusing on the right side, which is ability, skills, and knowledge, and not so much on behavior and personality. And there are reasons to it, many of them valid. and we'll go into a little bit of the details and then figure out why psycholinguistics is possibly a better bet in evaluating behavior and personality. But the essence of the slide clearly is that while ability, skills, and knowledge are important, I think the more critical aspect of identifying a successful employee in today's world and going forward in this environment of VUCA and rapid change is behavior and personality. Again, just to reiterate, there are two classic classifications of parameters that you would look for in employees when you're hiring, or look for employees when you're promoting them internally or reassigning them to new projects and so on and so forth. The one bucket is ability, skills, and knowledge, stuff that you typically end up learning faster, at least learning faster also. You can have a time scale. You could say that, hey, you can learn a new programming language in, let's say, 2 months. You could acquire a particular knowledge in a particular domain in, let's say, 3 months. You might have multiple ways of doing it through e-learning and so on and so forth. Cognitive abilities, with a little bit of practice, many of these abilities can be sharpened. You might be someone weak in, let's say, logical reasoning. There are multiple ways today, interventions today that can help you, improve that. But on the right side is personality and behavior, and as we saw in the slide, in the previous slide, personality and behavior plays a very, very big role in the way employees work in a work environment today. Most employees are working in collaboration. They are interacting with people, be it customers, be it peers, be it stakeholders, be it subordinates. And the important part to recognize here is that behavior and personality are relatively constant. It is difficult to change behavior and personality without significant effort over a long period of time. And that's one of the reasons why the right behavior and culture fit is a critical aspect of you having successful employees on board, and in turn affecting the productivity and performance positively. You would see that, while there are multiple scenarios that are there, I'm sure you relate to many of these in many organizations that each of you are working in. Not having the right people in the right jobs from a skills perspective is one thing, but not having the right people in the right job from a behavioral cultural fit can lead to frustrated co-workers. You might have a boss whose behavioral attributes do not match well with that of the co-workers, and therefore there's a lot of friction. And as HR, you will be called in to arbitrate there, and I'm sure there are enough and more cases where many of you are putting in efforts to kind of smoothen the situation. You will also have battling bosses today in the age of matrix relationships, where a person that doesn't necessarily report only to one particular boss, and you will have a horizontal reporting and a vertical reporting. Battling bosses can cause a significant impact on the performance in terms of what you would do next and what you would not do next, ultimately leading to a low-performing employee. But at the same time, you'll also see that in most organizations there is a bunch of people who will perform well. And if you do a little bit of deep analysis of that, you will find that apart from the ideal performer having a good amount of skills, knowledge, and so on and so forth, the one thing that really is different in that ideal performer is that he connects with the ethos of an organization far better. He is able to interact with all his peer groups much better in getting work done. He is able to convince and emotionally bond with his subordinates and make them toe his line, his vision, etc. And more critically, his vision in turn is properly aligned to what the leadership or the organization wants. And you will find such people are high performers. Therefore, we learned in the previous two slides that the attributes that make someone good in all these things that we're talking about now is behavior and personality, and that you can't change it unless you put in too much effort over a long period of time. So therefore, it's important that you kind of evaluate this at the entry stage itself. When the person, irrespective of his hierarchy of experience, is entering into the organization, it's important that his wavelength or his behavioral attributes matches with what you want as the ideal cultural profile of an employee in your organization. And let me tell you, the cultural profile of people in organizations varies from organization to organization for very similar roles. And that's a very fine aspect that needs to be done, and which is one of the reasons you will find someone who is very successful in a similar role in another company. You would have hired the person. You might not have done the behavioral match, but when this person comes to your company, you will find that his performance levels are significantly low. You will then attribute it to multiple reasons. It can and potentially it can end in a sour relationship between the employee and the employer, with attrition and all kinds of costs coming in. Understanding behavior in the workplace, multiple attempts have been made in the past we found that the main reason why it's not pervasive is because there is an issue of reliability. Time consuming, because it adds one additional layer of evaluation process. Typically, you would evaluate someone on skills, you might evaluate someone on maybe cognitive abilities, and then you subject the candidate to an additional assessment or additional behavioral assessment. So therefore adding to the entire recruitment time. Third, many tools, while as I said, some of the two international tools are good enough in terms of reliability. They don't have too much of issues around that. But from an expense perspective, from a cost perspective, they end up making it sometimes unviable to use it at a very large scale. And finally, the use of behavioral assessments also over a moderate volume also makes it sometimes easy for students to prepare for the evaluation itself, thereby leading to gaming. Limitations in the assessments offered in the market today, just a reiteration again. Number one, expensive. Second, lengthy and complicated reports, and it's important that we dwell on it for a minute or so. One of the reasons why behavioral assessments make it, existing assessments make it slightly difficult to evaluate at large numbers is because the reports sometimes are not simple enough for quick decision to be taken. You need the help of a psychologist to make those interpretations for you, and that sometimes adds to the complexity of using it more pervasively, which essentially linked again back to the report interpretation part. And the last part is many evaluations today have items in it which are unrelated to work environment. So for example, questions like this, we picked it up randomly from some instruments that we found in the market. Stuff like, do you like parties? Do your friends sometimes say about you that you are somewhat a self-important person, or do you like to talk to strangers, etc.? While all of these are going in some way in constructing the behavioral profile, sometimes it's difficult for an employee to relate to some of these questions. Therefore, you cannot be sure of the answer that he's giving and whether it is actually representative of what he is. Second is something called a social desirability. Social desirability is an issue with many behavioral assessments, and I use the word many because there are a few that probably have overcome it through what we call as fake detectors. But many instruments do not have fake detectors, and therefore you end up unwittingly getting candidates to provide socially desirable responses which are probably not completely congruent with their real behavioral profiles. So these are some of the reasons why behavioral profiles have not been very successful. The results of using the right behavior assessments on the other hand, of course, is that enhancing organizations' performance by improving the accuracy of candidate selection. It really, by using the right behavioral tool, assuming that it can really profile the person correctly, and from what we've learned in the last 7 or 8 slides, it can significantly improve performance. If people in an organization are working together as a group, committed to a single cause, working creatively, are able to handle volatility in market demand, customer requirements, etc., I think then you have a winning team. And therefore, the behavioral assessments can be a good input when you're hiring people. The second is, again, recommending the competencies for job profiles itself. This can help managers to manage the teams, individuals in the team by identifying different motivators and belief systems. So therefore, there is a clear benefit in using the right behavioral assessments in hiring as well as resourcing. The new approach. So let's now talk specifically about the new approach that this entire seminar is all about, which is the psycholinguistics. Psycholinguistics, while a term that could be fairly new to many of us, has been around for quite a few years. There has been intense research that has gone into psycholinguistics as an area itself, as an area of domain itself. Multiple psychologists world over have actually worked on it. And many of the theories have been well validated in psycholinguistics, have been well validated with tons of data, and therefore it's something that makes it very reliable and valid for use. What's also helped bring psycholinguistics forward, the question obviously could be that, if you've done so much of research over the last 20-30 years and it's found to be effective, why has it come into the forefront today? And the answer probably is the fact that it requires a huge amount of computing power and a fair amount of statistical data crunching to be able to arrive at right models. with the advent of technologies today and with the kind of computing power that's available in the hands of many of us, developing the backend algorithm to actually replicate this theory in a completely automated way is becoming fairly simple. And that is why psycholinguistics, you would find, is something that you will see fairly frequently as we go along. Assessing behavior video interviews. Now, we will go a little deeper into what psycholinguistics is all about before getting to the assessment of behavior interviews. Now, psycholinguistics is based on a science which says that behavior often is a reflection, often gets reflected in the kind of words we use in common communication. There is enough evidence to say that the kind of words that we use in reaction to certain situations, in reaction to common stimuli thrown at us, is fairly replicative or is fairly indicative of the kind of behavioral traits that we have. Based on this, scientists have devised a large dictionary called the LIWC, which is more than 6,000 odd words that have been kind of collated together, with many words being linked together to separate and clustered together and connected with various behavioral attributes. What the technological use of psycholinguistics does is it's able to match specific words provided as input by people and match it with what is there in the library, and then throw out the attribute that is linked to that. So this is at a 40,000 feet level. This is essentially what psycholinguistics does. The Big Five theory, for example, is fairly I won't say an extension, but it's fairly based on the model that the way your behavior is fashioned kind of impacts the way you speak your words and the words that you commonly use in daily life. What we at Talview have done is to take this logic and put it into an essential part of your hiring process or appraisal process or resourcing process, which is of doing an interview. And we've used technology here to use something that's become common in the last couple of years, which is video interviews. People sometimes use video interviews are typically both in a live form as well as in an asynchronous form. In a live form, obviously, you have an interviewer and an interviewee connected together through technology, and using tools like maybe at the bare minimum levels, tools like Skype, but in many other cases use specific tools to do the evaluation. The other is asynchronous, where there is a bunch of questions that are predefined and designed as a repository. Questions are popped out one after the other to a candidate, and the candidate responds to that question by an oral response which is getting recorded, and the entire thing is available for rating later by the interviewer. Now, in both of these, the candidate is typically answering questions around skills, typically answering questions which are more connected to his daily life. What we do here at Talview is to use that speech, though the words that the candidate has spoken, and apart from allowing the entire video clip to be accessed by the rater to be evaluated on skills or anything else that you might want to ask the candidate, we do a profiling based on the words that have been spoken. And it really doesn't matter what is being spoken in the video interview. It could be a completely technical interview. It could be a completely HR interview. It could be something, and it could even be something as simple as say something about yourself and a couple of other questions. As long as obviously there are some constraints or let's say outlines in terms of the number of words that need to be in the interview for us to be able to create a perfect profile, and we'll help companies. We can guide companies on that. But the interesting fact here is that the video interview, while is solving one part of your existing recruitment process itself, on the other hand is also going to give you a far more accurate behavioral profile of the candidate. And in the next couple of slides we'll come into why that is so. So the key differentiation between doing a behavioral test or an interview or a face-to-face interview at office versus a natural setting is the fact that the element of fakeability becomes low. More critically, in an office situation, you are talking of, and if you were, let's say, to give a candidate a behavioral test in office, which is a multiple choice question test, the chances are that he knows that he's being assessed for behavior there. He or she knows they are being assessed for behavior there, and therefore are likely to give a response which has an element of possible gaming involved in it. But the moment it's a natural setting and someone is getting evaluated on let's say his proficiency in Java or a program that he had written as part of his recruitment process, and you're discussing why he chose the program or why he thought about that particular logic, the candidate is more likely to come out and give forthright and more logical responses from which we are extracting the behavioral attributes and creating the behavioral profile. So that's the key difference, and that's why we believe fakeability is is much lesser in a natural setting than it is in a clear interview kind of setting. So if you look at the steps that we do in typical process, we have a job search. The job search would mean that you have JD, and there are multiple ATSs that are available today to help you source candidates and source them intelligently as well, not just based on based on what's written in the CV, but based on many other intelligent data that can get pulled out from the profile. Based on all these, you'll then identify a shortlist of people that you would want to involve in your hiring process. Now, the hiring process could start off with tests, or it could be a video interview, it could be keyword analysis, and multiple processes would be used to kind of process these candidates to the next step. And while that is happening, we are doing the behavioral profile using the words that are being spoken. It could even be written. It could even be a written response provided by the candidate, and our engine has the capability to pull that out and create a behavioral profile. And provide that to you as a report, which can then be used for your recruitment process. This can then be followed up with a live interview. So you've done an asynchronous interview or a test or a written exam. We've done the behavioral profiling. The candidate then can go into a live interview. In the live interview as well, there is an output from our behavioral process or behavioral reports that can help you structure the live interview much better and validate some of the points that come out in the behavioral test itself or the behavioral profiling itself. What all this leads to is that it gives you a far better match of a candidate in terms of his fitment into the culture of the organization. It gives you a far more accurate profile of the candidate, and therefore the chance that the candidate would attrite, especially in the first 90 days or 180 days because of cultural misfit of not fitting culturally correctly, is minimized. More critically, this is also faster because you're essentially cutting short the typical process and doing the interview using a technology-oriented mode. It could be even in an asynchronous mode, as I explained earlier, and you're deriving a behavioral attribute, behavioral profiling, which in today's process, because of some of the reasons why we spoke earlier, you don't use or you don't have at present to kind of evaluate, and then you're then relying on the HR interview to actually substitute that. What our suggested process does is ensures that you are able to go through this entire thing in a much more time-sensitive manner, and are able to get extra inputs, which can then improve the predictions or the accuracy of the hire itself. So this is just speaking about a kind of a report that you might have. Our assessment is based on Big Five. So the framework that we've used to kind of build the profile is Big Five needs and values. All of these are obviously well-established theories, working over centuries and working over decades rather. And then we've used these theories to kind of build the profile itself from the inputs that we get through the engine. Based on this, then we create what is called the Talview Behavioral Insights Report, a report which, at the face of it, is simple enough for decisions to be taken quickly in the recruitment kind of a scenario. Where you can kind of identify supercritical skills or supercritical attributes, and those can be flagged off at the top, and then you have skills that are required but not absolutely mandatory, and then there are skills that are good to have. So we kind of break it up into 2-3 categories. So and you could have a recruitment process which says that it's mandatory that the supercritical skills are green for all candidates. High skills, you could say 3 out of 5 or 4 out of 6 could be green, and you'll have low skills saying that at least 1 should be green. So that could be as simple as that for the recruiter to handle when he's doing when he's taking a decision about hiring. In addition to that, we provide something called the interview guide. The interview guide is a bunch of questions or a compendium of questions which can then be used by you depending on whether the earlier report, the basic report, had greens, ambers or reds. You can then, for those particular parameters that you would want to evaluate further, you could use questions provided in the interview guide and then use the interview guide to kind of validate that. So essentially what it's saying is that before the candidate comes into the HR interview, you've done an 80-85% match. The last 15% is then matched based on not a completely blind kind of a interview situation, but a very guided interview based on what's come out in the behavioral report in the previous step. And the last part of the situation is what is called as the development guide. This is essentially for people that you've already made the offer for. Let's assume you had a candidate who has met the basic minimum criteria in terms of the behavioral attributes or competencies, but then you want to figure out what kind of a role you would fit in specifically inside the organization. Or let's assume you have a situation where you want to move people from one cluster to another cluster. It is in such situations that a developmental guide would be fairly useful. The developmental guide would then, you could use the development guide for the learning and development teams to provide interventions to make the candidate more suitable for a particular role than he is at present. How scientific is this? We spoke about it briefly in the past or in the previous slides. One, it's based on well-established theories like Big 5 intrinsic needs and values. We use cognitive analytics in a big way to kind of develop the profile. Psycholinguistics itself, well-established science. We've taken the help of industry experts in academia to help create the reports. The reports, by the way, are fairly configurable depending on the competencies that you have in your organization. And more critically, Talview as a company has conducted more than 1 million video interviews so far, and we've used all this data to kind of fine-tune this tool to meet the specific requirements of providing an accurate profiling tool. Right. The key advantages of using psycholinguistics-based video interviews are: one, fewer steps because you are essentially short-circuiting the behavioral assessment step itself. It can be taken at home because there is a asynchronous interview that can help you do this in a fairly simplistic way. Natural responses, because we're talking of a condition where the candidate is actually responding to something that is naturally strong in terms of skills or whatever, and we're using that to pull out the behavioral profile. Machine learning capabilities. The engine itself has a lot of machine learning capabilities, and it can keep tweaking as we go along, as the specific organizational requirements and needs keep changing. And finally, fake proof as well. Advantages of the specific Talview offering itself is that it is simple. As I said earlier, there is a role-based customization available. We'll sit with your HR competency teams to build the specific behavioral reports. So while the back end is all completely automated, the front end can be customized specifically for individual requirements. And I said the culture fitment of each organization for a similar kind of a role can be completely different. And therefore, this level of customization is an important part of the entire offering itself. Interview scripting, questions for the behavioral, questions for the final interview, development guide. All of these then make the Talview offering fairly attractive to be used very widely and across scale, rather than the smaller set of roles that most companies today use behavioral interviews or behavior assessments for. So just a quick summary of what we learned. One, the words used by people are indicative of their personality. This is the basic theory behind this. The Big 5 captures personality traits through common language descriptors. We spoke about this. The large compendium, the LIWC that I spoke about, linguistic dictionary, it can be used to arrive at underlying psychological constructs and therefore the behavioral competence. The video interview method is the most effective to do this and probably the most accurate method because it removes all possible gaming possibilities and culturally desirable responses from candidate because you're asking something completely different to behavioral questions there. And the Talview report has specific reports for job roles across industries and experience levels. So we're creating a bunch of reports, each of which can be customized further depending on the culture fitment for each of your individual companies. Just as a quick addition, the analytics engine that we use at the backend to arrive at this, to arrive at the matching between what is spoken by the candidate and what's there in the dictionary is the Watson Analytics engine, and the entire thing has been validated by leading occupational psychologists and industry experts as well. For the next 2 to 3 slides, where we speak a little more about Talview and what it offers in larger spectrum, I'm inviting the CEO of Talview, Sanjo Jose, to take you through the next 2 to 3 slides.
Thank you, Rajiv. I'm sure it was a very enriching session for all the participants. So today we got a very good overview of how the Talview, the new offering from Talview Behavioral Insights, which leverages the technique of psycholinguistics functions and what are the advantages. I want to use this opportunity also to invite you to Talview's, all the participants to Talview's annual user conference, which is happening in Bangalore on August 17th at Le Meridian. And in this event, apart from an opportunity to interact with Rajiv, where you can, if you have more questions and probably want to spend more time understanding some of the key aspects of behavioral insights. We also have Professor Ravi Kumar, who is the head of HR department of IIM Bangalore, who will be joining us, and who is also one of the other mentors for Talview on the behavioral insight product, who will be also talking about the same aspect. Apart from this, on the day, we will also be having speakers from organizations like Society Generale, HCL, Cognizant, IBM, all of whom with international experience will talk about some of the cutting edge technologies and some of the cutting edge processes which they have adopted in their organization in talent acquisition and in HR in general. So this is the agenda of the event. I invite all of you to visit our website and register for the event, where you can look forward to a very enriching interaction with all the experts we have on the panel and for the keynote sessions. So apart from this, just a quick overview of Talview. So Talview mainly has 3 lines of product. One is a video assessment, where we offer the industry's most comprehensive platform when it comes to supporting different types of assessments. So apart from asynchronous interview and live interview, which Rajiv did mention about during the session, we also provide different formats of video proctored written test, where you can have the candidates take the test online from the location of their convenience in multiple formats. It could be a objective test, a multiple choice question test, it could be a code test, it could be a simulation, it could be a typing test or a grammar test. So you can use Talview to assess all kind of skills and obviously now with the Talview behavioral insights, behavioral aspects, remotely without having to get the candidate to a location where you can meet them. Talent Insights, which is a broader offering when it comes to Talview's capabilities in the talent acquisition space, where we have capabilities right from sourcing the right resumes, shortlisting resumes using natural language processing and artificial intelligence, and helping you to automate a large part of the screening and selection process as well using different tools which we have. We are doing the official launch of Talview Talent Insights for India market on the day. So we will be speaking at length about the product on the day of the event. And talent engagement is our last line of product, where we help you with a lot of tools to engage and attract best talent and build an on-demand talent engine. This is a quick overview of some of our clients in India especially. We work with almost all sectors ranging from engineering, pharma, retail, FMCG, IT, BPO. So we would also have representatives, HR leaders from all these organizations who will be attending the event on 17th. So it will also be an opportunity for you to interact with them and understand their experience in using these technologies in their organizations. So I think with that, we come to the end of the presentation. Shweta, we can take questions now.
Great, wonderful. Thank you so much for such an amazing presentation. Yes, and let's move on to the question and answers. So right away, the first question is coming from Atul. Atul wants to know, can we use behavioral competencies in PMS process to evaluate the employee performance?
The answer to it's an extremely good question, Atul, and I think it's with the huge change in the PMS process itself coming in terms of, for example, a very large organization moving away from the bell curve. I think it's an important attribute to be measured, which is the behavior of the candidate, and I can clearly confirm here that this particular process that we have in place here, or this tool that we have in place here, can be easily used in the behavioral process. The only change that you need to do from the existing process is to make the interaction between the reviewer and the reviewee there available on an audio conversation to us, and we'll be able to use that to generate the behavioral profile of the person and provide it to you. So the reviewer and the reviewee could be reviewing on what is there in the KRS sheet or the goal setting sheet, and we will use the content of the conversation to provide you a behavioral input, which can be used in your PMS process, and you can then use it to identify the person for specific roles in the next in the next year, and so on and so forth.
Wonderful. So shall we move on to the next question?
Yes, please.
Perfect. So the next one is coming from Vinod. He has two questions clubbed into one. So he says, first, he's curious to know if you have any study done on the validity and reliability of behavioral competency framework for startups. And secondly, for leadership development, what makes more sense? Is it EQ assessment or competency mapping or personality assessment?
Okay, let me take the second question first, right? The reason why let me just break that into two parts. The question clearly is that, do you want to measure EQ or personality assessments or competency mapping? The answer is ideally you'd want to do multiple evaluations and then triangulate on the output of all of that. But in a real situation, sometimes it's not possible, and therefore you will then have to stack rank it in terms of what is more doable and what is more reliable and what is more accurate. Now, in that context, and from what we've seen in this particular tool and the fact the way it is set up, that it's taken in a non-assessment kind of a scenario, your best bet for even at the leadership level could very well be usage of a psycholinguistics tool as an important input into your decision-making process. And then the first question was more on for startups, right? One of the things that I clearly said is that for a given role itself, the fitment, the culture fitment, or the organizational culture fitment can be different for different companies. And in this particular overall context, the startup culture is different. There are specific attributes that of behavior that you would want in a startup that maybe are not very mandatory in, let's say, a large organization. One of the things could be risk taking. One of the things could be exposure to suddenly varying or extremely varying conditions of work and so on and so forth. We can map all of that. So essentially what we would do is we would come and sit with you, identify the key attributes that make your organization the way it is, and then use that to create a customized report for your organization. You can then use this particular report to identify whether candidates are fitting to your specific organization culture or not, or if there is a significant variation between what the kind of direction the behavior traits need to have in your organization versus what the candidate actually possesses.
Sure. Thank you so much, Ravi, for answering that. So moving on to the next one, this is coming from Parag. So Parag wants to know what are the downsides of video interview process?
Sure. Parag, hi. When you say downsides, so the video interview is only a method of, or let's say a vehicle for doing the interview. The same interview that you're doing in person can be conducted on video. It provides the additional benefits of the interviewer and the interviewee not having to be in the same place if it's an asynchronous interview. Not having to be in the same place in the case of a live interview that's been done through the internet, or
in addition to that, the necessity for the interviewer and the interview to be available at the same time to do the interview is also removed in the asynchronous interview process. So I would only say that there are better benefits or there are more value added in the entire interview process itself by taking it onto the video mode. There are no other downsides except for one single thing, which again in today's world is not necessarily downside, providing the platform is robust enough, which is about internet connectivity. Now, there are a number of video interview solutions available in the market. Of course, I don't think any of them actually provide behavioral profiling. But in our case, one of the things that we've clearly done is to optimize it for the kind of bandwidth that are available in India. And we have seen that video interviews on our platform can even be done at a 2G connection at this point of time. If you have a 2G connection, we are fairly confidently or fairly easily able to do the interview. So the only thing is, if let's say you are in an area where the data connectivity completely drops off, in which case there is not much we can do. We just reschedule the interview. Apart from that, everything, I don't think there's any other issue at all. Yeah, so I said that's about it. We can take the next question now.
Sure, perfect. So the next question is coming from Ashwini. Ashwini says, we are discussing about using Talview for hiring. Can it be used for assessment and development of existing employees in an organization?
Yes. So I presume the question therefore pertains to saying that can the Talview video interview process, which you are already using for hiring in the market, can it be used for internal employees also? The answer is absolutely yes. You would change the kind of questions that you would ask an employee because the purpose is going to be slightly different. But the end output in terms of arriving at a behavioral profile and identifying areas where you need to work on through the development guide, etc., is something that we can definitely do for internal employees.
Sure. Thank you so much for answering that. Now we will move on to the next question, which is coming from Gurmeet. So Gurmeet has two questions. Gurmeet says, thank you, Sanjoy and Rajiv. First of all, is it used for leadership hiring as well? Secondly, do we have different competencies at different levels? Also, is it possible in face-to-face interviews as well?
Okay, so there are three questions there. Let me just answer one after the other. One, is it applicable for leadership hiring? The answer is absolutely yes. It is applicable for any situation where you need to evaluate behavioral traits. Now, is this the only sufficient assessment for a leadership hiring, let's say at a CXO kind of level or one below CXO kind of level? The answer is no. You will need many more inputs. I don't think there is any one particular tool that you can just pass across and identify your next CEO or next CXO. But the input that will come from this particular tool will be a fairly strong input in terms of your decision-making process. That's number one. Number two, is there different levels of competency? The answer is absolutely yes. The competency that you would use for someone at, let's say, a mid-manager level will be different in the same bucket than someone that you need at a CXO or a senior manager or a VP kind of a level. And again, this can get answered by the customization of the reports that we'll provide you. You can use the same methodology, that is, you'll conduct an interview. The voice clipping or the video recording or even the text response is available to Talview. We run it through our engine, and we then give you an output in a report that will be customized to your specific requirement. And that customization could be because there is a level difference. Customization could be because the job requirement itself is different, and so on and so forth. So that customization takes care of that process completely.
Thank you, Rajiv, for answering that. So the next question is coming from Vinay. It's a short question, but I think it is important because it really wants to clarify the basics. Vinay says, how is psycholinguistics different from behavioral event interviewing?
Okay, sure. Let's say one major difference. Behavioral event interview is an interview that is, in the interview itself, the questions that are being asked are primarily aided at evaluating the behavior itself. So, in a sense, it is an extension of a behavioral test, except that you're asking very relevant questions which are relevant to the specific area of work that the employee is coming in, or based on some inputs from an earlier assessment, etc. So the candidate very well knows that he's being evaluated for behavior there, and again can provide the same amount of gaming that is possible through a regular behavioral test. The stuff that we're doing on psycholinguistics, on the other hand, is that we're using the same theory. The principle will remain the same. We're still going to use stuff like the VUCA, needs and values, etc. The only difference is that the inputs for the analysis engine is coming in from a completely random conversation. And when I say random, unconnected to behavior interview. It could be about skills, it could be about past experience, it could be about some project that the person has done in the past that is of interest to the company that's hiring, and that is used to create the behavioral profile. And therefore, the element of fakeability is fairly less. Sanjay wants to add a point.
Yeah, and to add on to that, to actually conduct an interview of the kind, you need an expert in-house who is trained on all of these aspects. So what the Talview's behavioral engine is doing is eliminating the need for an expert in-house and using technology to do the same process which is done otherwise in a much more scalable and automated fashion.
Thank you so much, Rajiv and Sanjay, for taking that. So we have just space for one last question, and we are going to take up the question from Rupali. Rupali says, I would like to ask the feedback of companies who have used this technique, and is there any impact on attrition management?
Right. So let me answer the more obvious question, which is the second one. Impact on attrition management. If you really ask yourselves, why does attrition happen? There are multiple reasons for it. It could be a skill mismatch. It could be an environment mismatch. It could be some other event that's happened in the in the candidate's life or the employee's life. Now, out of these, the skill mismatch, I'm sure most of you are already taking care of it by doing a skill assessment. It could be a coding test, or so on and so forth. And the third one, there is not much of a control. The only other cause for attrition, therefore, is the behavior or the cultural fitment mismatch, because of which and as human beings, you tend to react to situations around you. You have a built-in behavior. Now, this built-in behavior will come out in a particular fashion depending on the stimuli that has been provided to you. So, you could be someone who is, let's say, very, very focused and can't work in groups. Let's assume I'm extremely good in skills. You hired me. I come into the organizations and I'm in a role which requires me to work in multiple sets of groups, and decision making is to be done in groups. Chances are that because it's a behavioral trait and because it takes a significant amount of time and effort to kind of change my trait, I will end up end up feeling like a fish out of the pond in that particular organization setup, and I will attrite. Now, if you've done the behavioral evaluation when I'm getting hired at that point itself, the chances are that I might not have been hired for that role. It could be someone else who will have the skills, but who probably also have a much more stronger behavioral connect with what is going on in the organization or the particular job role, and therefore unlikely to attract by the cause that I specifically spoke about. And so, in that sense, it definitely brings down the possible attrition in the organization.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for taking that last one for us. And with this question and answer session, we are going to wrap up today's webinar. I would like to thank today's webinar partner, Talview, and also a very, very special thanks to our speakers, Rajiv and Sanjay, for this webinar and the amazing information and insights that they have shared with us today. I would like to thank everyone in the webinar audience for participating in today's presentation. Like always, we will come back to you with many more. This concludes today's webcast. Thank you all and have a great day ahead.